The sun set over the futuristic city of New Haven, casting long shadows across its gleaming skyscrapers. The city, a marvel of advanced technology and design, was still, peaceful even. But that stillness, that silence, felt wrong. Something was off. Commander David Bonner, a battle-hardened soldier, stood on the observation deck of the military command center. The massive glass windows offered him a clear view of the sprawling metropolis below. He had seen cities fall before, his mind constantly replaying the images of past battles, explosions, and chaos. But this time was different. The air felt thick, tense, as if the world itself was holding its breath. The city was quiet, but Bonner knew better. There was always a calm before the storm, and today, that storm was coming. Without warning, the calm was shattered. The blaring sound of the alarm echoed through the command center, rattling the walls and sending waves of urgency across the room. A series of red lights flashed, casting an eerie glow on the faces of the officers around him. A calm voice from the comms console broke the silence. "Commander, we've detected multiple unknown vessels entering Earth's orbit. They're massives, sir, and their technology. It's far beyond anything we've seen." Bonner's grip tightened around the railing. He didn't need to ask for more details. He had seen the reports, had studied the rumors. But hearing it, seeing the panic in the faces of the techs and analysts in the room, confirmed his worst fears. They were here, the aliens, and they weren't here to make peace. He turned to his team. "Get the fighter pilots ready. Scramble the defense fleet. We don't know what we're up against, but we're about to find out." His orders were immediate, but his mind was racing. The enemy ships were cloaked, impossible to detect until they were practically on top of Earth. That meant they had already breached the outer defense perimeters without anyone realizing. The alien fleet was large, its ships silent as shadows in the vastness of space. But what made it worse was the technology. Earth's defenses, although advanced, had never been tested against anything like this. Bonner's thoughts were interrupted by a sudden shift in the sky. A massive shape appeared, slowly coming into focus as it exited the shadows. The alien mothership, the size of a small moon, hovered silently above Earth's atmosphere. Its dark, metallic surface shimmered with an otherworldly glow, and its sheer size dwarfed anything humanity had ever seen. The ship seemed to pulse, an ominous heartbeat in the sky. The room was silent. The officers around Bonner stared at the screen, their faces pale. "We're not ready for this," one of the techs whispered, more to himself than anyone else. Bonner's jaw clenched. He had seen his share of battles, but nothing could have prepared him for this. "We don't have the luxury of being ready," he replied sharply. "This is what we've trained for. Get the fleets in position. Now." As he spoke, the alien fleet began to move. Their ships were sleek, designed for speed and precision. But it wasn't the speed that terrified Bonner. It was the coordination. Every movement seemed deliberate, calculated. This wasn't an invasion of mindless warriors. These aliens, whoever they were, had a plan. And that plan had already begun. The first strike came without warning. The eye-controlled ships above Earth deployed their weapons, and suddenly, the calm of the night shattered into chaos. Bright flashes filled the sky as a massive, coordinated orbital bombardment rained down upon Earth's cities. Each explosion was like a drumbeat, echoing across the planet. Buildings crumbled, streets were swallowed by fire, and the Earth itself seemed to groan in pain. New Haven, the city Bonner had called home, wasn't spared. He watched helplessly as the cityscape he had once protected was reduced to rubble. The alien weapons were so powerful, they were able to vaporize entire blocks with a single shot. It was an attack that didn't just target military installations. It was a declaration of war. Bonner's mind raced as he processed the destruction. His thoughts turned to his family, his men, his comrades. They were all still out there, fighting, struggling to survive. But now, the fight had escalated. The aliens weren't here for negotiations. They had come to conquer, to destroy. The time for defenses had passed. Mobilize the last line of defense, Bonner barked. He didn't have time to think about the consequences. There was only one thing he could do: fight back. Inside the command center, technicians scrambled to deploy Earth's most advanced weapons, but it was clear they were outmatched. The aliens had not only caught them off guard, they were in control. The drones, the fleets, the AI systems, they were everywhere. Bonner's eyes narrowed as the countdown began. A few minutes, that's all they had. The first wave of human defense ships, battered but ready, ascended into the atmosphere, cloaking devices humming as they deployed into orbit. Bonner's mind was focused, but his hands trembled slightly as he activated his fighter systems. The cockpit came alive with the glow of lights, and the hum of the engines filled his ears. He checked his weapon systems. Everything was in place. But even as Bonner prepared for what was to come, he knew that this battle was different. It wasn't just a fight for survival anymore. It was a fight to keep humanity from being wiped off the face of the Earth. As Bonner's fighter broke through the atmosphere, he saw the alien mothership in the distance. Its silhouette was massive against the black void of space, and it loomed like a nightmare come to life. He wasn't just fighting for Earth's survival, he was fighting for the future of humanity. The first shots rang out, and the battle began. The skies above Earth became a battlefield, where human ships, outclassed and outnumbered, engaged the alien invaders. Each passing second felt like an eternity, as Bonner and his team fought back with everything they had. The odds were insurmountable, but humanity was resilient. In the distance, Bonner could see the alien war machines descending toward the surface. He knew they had to hold the line, or the destruction would spread beyond the cities. But the enemy had something they hadn't anticipated. It wasn't just their numbers or technology. It was their precision. They were attacking with an intelligence that seemed to anticipate every human move. The battle wasn't just physical, it was psychological. The aliens knew how to break their opponents before the first shot was even fired. "Stay focused." Bonner's voice rang through his comms as he barked orders to his squad. "We're not giving up." As the first wave of human fighters engaged the alien fleet, Bonner's heart raced. He couldn't afford to fail now. Earth depended on them. Humanity's fate was in their hands. The battle had only just begun, and already, Bonner knew this would be a fight to the death. But if there was one thing that he had learned in all his years of warfare, it was this: humanity had one advantage the aliens didn't: the human spirit. And that was something the invaders would never be able to crush. As the first wave of explosions lit up the sky, Bonner's thoughts remained clear. No matter the cost, no matter how impossible the odds seemed, he would fight until the end. The future of humanity was on the line, and he wasn't going to let them fall without a fight. The countdown to their survival had begun. The battle had started. Above Earth's surface, a war like no other was unfolding. Alien machines, eye-controlled robots, and automated drones buzzed through the sky, their sleek, metallic bodies glinting under the harsh light of the Earth's sun. They moved with precision and speed, their movements perfect, calculated. It was as if they knew exactly what to do, each move timed down to the millisecond. Bonner's team, however, wasn't quite ready for the scale of the attack. They were human soldiers, trained to fight with everything they had. But up against this level of technological warfare, they were underdogs in every sense of the word. The alien robots were faster, stronger, and smarter. They were designed for combat, efficient, ruthless, and relentless. Yet despite the overwhelming odds, Bonner knew there was one thing the aliens didn't have, one thing they could never replicate: human spirit. His team, though outmatched in technology, had something the robots and drones could never understand. They had each other. They had the determination to survive, the will to fight, and the ability to adapt in ways the machines never could. Bonner's squad was deployed on the front line, and as they stepped into the heart of the battlefield, The sheer scale of the destruction became clear. Alien warships hovered above, casting large, dark shadows across the ravaged cities below. Ground forces, automated drones, and towering robots marched relentlessly forward, each footstep causing tremors in the Earth's surface. These machines were a new kind of enemy, unlike anything humanity had ever encountered. "Stay sharp," Bonner muttered into his comms. His voice was calm, but inside, his heart pounded. He knew they didn't have the luxury of making mistakes. The aliens didn't need to reload their weapons or take breaks. They didn't get tired. They didn't feel fear. But Bonner's team, they were human, and that meant they had something the machines couldn't replicate: the will to fight, to survive against all odds. They were an underdog team, but the underdog had one advantage that was priceless: the element of surprise. Bonner's squad used guerrilla warfare tactics to their advantage. They weren't going to face the enemy head-on in open battle. They didn't have the firepower for that. Instead, they used the terrain to their advantage, striking fast and disappearing into the shadows, only to reappear in places the alien forces weren't prepared for. Cloaking devices allowed them to vanish into the environment, making them invisible to the automated drones that roamed the battlefield. At first, it seemed to work. The human tactics confused the aliens. The robots couldn't keep up with the unpredictable nature of their movements. They fired at empty space, their laser weapons striking nothing but the crumbled ruins of once proud cities. Bonner and his team moved through the destruction with the kind of fluidity that came only from years of training and a deep understanding of survival. But Bonner knew this couldn't last forever. The aliens were too advanced, their technology too precise, and eventually they would adapt. "Keep moving," Bonner barked as another explosion shook the ground. A drone buzzed overhead, scanning the area. It was only a matter of time before they were discovered. Bonner glanced at his team. His soldiers were tired, but there was no time to rest. They were pushing themselves to their limits, and he knew they couldn't keep this up for much longer. But if they could keep up the pressure, just for a little while longer, they might have a chance. The team moved through the ruins, using the cover of the destroyed buildings to launch surprise attacks on the alien machines. The humans were quick, efficient, and relentless, picking off drones one by one, taking down robots in close-quarter combat, and then vanishing back into the shadows. It was working for now. But Bonner's instincts told him that something was about to change. The tide was about to shift. And then it happened. As Bonner led his squad into a new attack formation, the sound of a heavy, mechanical thud reached his ears. It wasn't the usual hum of drones or the whir of robotic legs. This sound was heavier, deeper. A shadow fell over the soldiers as the ground trembled beneath their feet. Bonner's eyes widened as a massive figure emerged from the dust and smoke ahead. A new force had entered the battlefield. The ground shook with every step it took. A colossal alien warlord, unlike anything they had seen before, appeared on the horizon. Its armored frame was as imposing as it was terrifying. The warlord's armor glowed with an eerie, otherworldly light. It stood several stories tall, towering over Bonner and his team. Bonner's team froze for a moment, stunned by the sheer size and power of the enemy they now faced. This wasn't just another drone or robot. This was a sentient being, a warrior built for war, a commander in its own right. Its eyes, bright, red, and full of malice, locked onto Bonner's team. There was no mistaking it. This was the AI's supreme commander, the one who had led the alien fleet to Earth. For a moment, Bonner's mind raced. How could they fight something like this? They were outmatched, outgunned, and outclassed. But then something clicked inside him. It wasn't just the warlord they had to defeat. It was the entire system that had sent them here. And if the AI-controlled forces could be beaten, if they could be forced to realize that humanity wouldn't just lie down and die, maybe, just maybe, there was a chance. The alien warlord raised a massive weapon, its energy core glowing brightly. Bonner knew that if that weapon fired, it would obliterate them all. Without hesitation, He barked orders to his team. Move. Take cover. The team scattered, darting between ruined buildings and taking positions where they could launch their attack. The warlord's weapon hummed with power, and Bonner knew they didn't have long before it fired. This wasn't just a fight for survival. It was the turning point, the moment when humanity would either rise or fall. As the warlord's weapon charged, Bonner's mind raced. He couldn't afford to hesitate. He had to act. And he had to do it now. He called on everything he had learned from years of combat. Every strategy, every trick in the book. It was time for the underdog to fight back. The team moved as one, launching a coordinated attack on the alien warlord. Their cloaking devices worked for a moment, but the warlord's advanced sensors quickly picked up on their movements. It wasn't enough to surprise him, but it was enough to keep him distracted, to give them a brief window of opportunity. Bonner's heart raced as he aimed his weapon, the pulse rifle crackling with energy. It was a long shot, literally and figuratively, but this was their only chance. And as the first blast fired, Bonner realized one thing: this was just the beginning. The fight for Earth was far from over. The underdogs had risen, but now they were about to face the greatest challenge of their lives. Bonner and his team had fought bravely against the relentless alien assault, but the horrors they faced were far from over. As they regrouped and assessed their next move, the gravity of the situation became all too clear. The aliens didn't just have an army. They had something far more terrifying, a weapon capable of wiping out Earth itself. Intelligence reports had come through in fragments, but one thing was certain: the aliens had developed eye-controlled black hole generators. These monstrous devices were capable of creating singularities, black holes that could consume entire cities, and if used on Earth, they could tear the planet apart. The moment Bonner and his team understood the magnitude of this threat, their mission changed. It wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about preventing total annihilation. "We need to stop this," Bonner said, his voice a quiet growl. "We don't have much time." The team sat around a holographic map of the alien stronghold, the coordinates flashing ominously on the screen. It was located in a remote area, deep within a desolate landscape on the edge of the alien fleet's control. The black hole generators were housed in a high-security facility, surrounded by automated defenses, drones, and lethal robotic soldiers. It was a fortress, but if there was any chance of taking it down, Bonner knew they had to act fast. "We don't have the tech to face them head-on," Bonner continued, scanning the map with his cold, focused eyes. "But what we do have is speed and surprise. We'll infiltrate, disable the generators, and get out before they even know we're there." The plan was bold, dangerous, and it relied on every ounce of skill his team possessed. It was the only shot they had, but with Earth's survival on the line, they had no choice but to take it. They prepped for the raid, making sure to have everything they needed: explosives, cloaking devices, and basic weaponry. Their ships weren't equipped with the high-tech weapons that the aliens had, but they had learned to make do with what they had. Their cloaking technology was their greatest asset, allowing them to slip past alien radar and approach their target undetected. As the team boarded their ships, a sense of unease settled over Bonner. They were about to face the alien stronghold, one of the most fortified locations on Earth. They weren't just going to have to fight their way through automated defenses. They were going to have to break into a high-tech facility that was designed to keep them out. Every second mattered. Bonner stood at the helm of the lead ship, his hand steady on the controls. He glanced over at his team. They were tense but focused, understanding the weight of the mission ahead. Each one of them knew that this might be their last fight. The ships ascended into the atmosphere, cloaked in invisibility. As they made their way toward the alien stronghold, Bonner felt a knot tighten in his chest. The air around them crackled with anticipation. The weight of the mission settled heavily on his shoulders, but he didn't let it show. He was a soldier. He had been through too much to back down now. The fate of the world was in their hands. Their journey through the enemy territory was tense, The sky was thick with alien drones, their glowing red eyes scanning the area. The ships moved in tight formations, barely making a sound as they slipped past enemy patrols. Bonner's mind raced, his every sense on high alert. He knew that at any moment, they could be discovered, and the consequences would be catastrophic. They had to be perfect. As they neared the stronghold, the first signs of alien activity appeared. A squadron of drones appeared on the radar, heading straight for them. Bonner's heart skipped a beat. They had been detected. But instead of panic, a cold sense of determination swept over him. "Hold tight," Bonner ordered, his voice calm but firm. With expert precision, he guided the ships into a series of evasive maneuvers, dodging the drone's radar and moving deeper into the shadows of the enemy's stronghold. The drones swarmed around them, but they couldn't pinpoint the cloaked ships. For a brief moment, it felt like they might actually make it through undetected. But as they closed in on the facility's outskirts, the real danger began. The stronghold was a towering structure, guarded by automated security systems, including armed drones and robots. It was a maze of high walls, hidden turrets, and tight corridors. The team landed on a secluded plateau, far from the main entrance. From there, they would make their way to the heart of the facility and disable the black hole generators. The moment they disembarked, they were met with a brutal wave of resistance. Alien robots, sleek, deadly machines designed for combat, poured out of hidden compartments, their weapons ready. Bonner and his team immediately fell into formation, using the terrain to their advantage. They moved fast, relying on their guerrilla tactics to stay one step ahead of the machines. The robots were terrifying, sleek, with sharp edges, their bodies reflecting the dim light like predators lurking in the dark. They moved with speed and precision, and their weapons tore into the ground as they fired. But Bonner's team wasn't about to give up. They fought back with everything they had. The team used their hand-to-hand combat skills and explosives to take down the robots one by one. Every move was calculated, every strike purposeful. Bonner led the charge, his pulse rifle flashing as it took down an enemy drone. A soldier beside him threw an explosive device, taking out a group of robots in a massive burst of fire. For every alien machine they destroyed, another one seemed to take its place. The onslaught was relentless, but Bonner's team refused to back down. They moved quickly through the enemy stronghold, dodging incoming fire and staying just out of reach of the automated defense systems. They had one mission: to destroy the black hole generators before it was too late. The journey wasn't without its costs. A soldier named Carter fell during the attack, his life taken by the blast of a drone's energy beam. The loss was devastating, but there was no time for mourning. They couldn't afford to stop. For Carter, and for all of humanity, they had to keep moving. The team fought through the maze of corridors and defenses, using their explosives to breach doors and disable security systems. Sweat poured down their faces, but they didn't falter. They were so close now. The black hole generators were just ahead, heavily guarded by the aliens' most advanced machines. This was the final obstacle. If they could get past this, they could destroy the generators and save Earth. The air was thick with tension as they approached the heart of the stronghold. Bonner's team had fought tooth and nail to get here, but the hardest part was yet to come. The final battle to save the world was about to begin. With a deep breath, Bonner prepared for what was next. They had come this far, and they weren't going to stop now. Bonner and his team were closing in on the alien stronghold, the final battle almost within reach. Their mission to destroy the black hole generators and prevent Earth's destruction had taken them through endless struggles. Yet nothing had prepared Bonner for the betrayal he was about to uncover, something that would shake the very foundation of everything he had believed in. The team had moved swiftly through the high-tech facility, each step bringing them closer to their goal. They fought fiercely, using every ounce of energy they had left. Bonner's leadership and the team's unshakable resolve had been the only thing keeping them together through the hardest moments of this mission. But as they approached the heart of the alien stronghold, something felt off. The usual hum of the alien facility was interrupted by strange, almost unnatural signals in their communication systems. The air was thick with tension, but none of them could pinpoint exactly why. Bonner's mind raced as they navigated through the facility's labyrinthine corridors. He had faced death many times before, but this time felt different. The walls around him seemed to close in, and an uneasy silence descended over the group. It was then that his communicator buzzed to life. The message that came through was not from his team, but from someone within his own military command, a high-ranking official he had once trusted. "Commander Bonner," the voice crackled, familiar yet cold. "You're not going to make it out of here. The deal has already been struck. We have no intention of letting you disrupt the plan. You've been a pawn from the very beginning." Bonner froze, his blood running cold as the words sank in. His hands tightened around his weapon. The betrayal was so sudden, so unexpected, that for a moment he couldn't even process it. His mind struggled to make sense of the situation. Had the aliens truly infiltrated their ranks? Were they working with humans from the inside? "Who is this?" Bonner demanded, his voice steady but filled with rising anger. "What are you talking about?" The voice on the other end didn't hesitate. "You're just a tool, Bonner. You and your team have been playing into our hands. We've already made arrangements with the aliens. Once you're out of the way, there will be no resistance left." The communicator fell silent, leaving Bonner and his team stunned. The revelation hit them like a physical blow. Their own military had been compromised. The fight they had thought was about saving Earth had been tainted by the knowledge that there were those within their own ranks who were working with the enemy. The resistance they had fought for was now in jeopardy, and the real battle was not just against the alien invaders. It was against the very people they had trusted. Bonner's mind raced, the shock of the revelation nearly breaking his focus. He knew that he couldn't let this shake him. He had to keep his team together. The mission was still the same: destroy the superweapon, no matter the cost. But this new information changed everything. If their own military was against them, if they were playing into the hands of the alien overlords, who could they trust? He looked around at his team. Their faces reflected the same shock and disbelief, but there was no time to process it. They had come too far, and the stakes were too high. Bonner knew that, despite the betrayal, they had to keep moving forward. "We can't stop now," Bonner said, his voice a low growl. "We finish what we started. We stop that weapon, and we end this." With renewed determination, Bonner led the team toward the central chamber where the black hole generators were housed. But as they moved deeper into the facility, the signs of betrayal became impossible to ignore. They encountered resistance from their own military forces. Soldiers who had once fought alongside them now turned against them. These traitors were fully armed, working in conjunction with the alien invaders to secure the facility and ensure that Bonner and his team would fail. The first ambush came without warning. Bonner and his team were caught in a hail of gunfire as their own military forces turned their weapons on them. It was chaos. The familiar faces of their comrades, now twisted by betrayal, fired on them without hesitation. The team fought back, but the knowledge that they were being attacked by their own people made the fight even harder. Bonner's heart pounded in his chest as he led the charge, firing back at the traitors. The betrayal cut deeper with each shot. These were the men and women who had once stood beside them, trained alongside them, and shared the same goal. And now, they were enemies. Bonner's chest tightened with anger and frustration, but he couldn't let it show. If he let his emotions take over, it would cost them the mission, and maybe their lives. The team moved with precision, using their guerrilla tactics to outmaneuver their traitorous comrades. They fought back, not just to survive, but to prove that humanity's spirit could not be crushed, no matter how deep the betrayal went. They had no choice but to keep moving. Their mission was more important than their anger. They couldn't let the aliens win, not like this. As they pushed forward, the true scale of the betrayal became clearer. The military officials who had struck deals with the aliens weren't just a few isolated figures. They were part of a larger conspiracy, an entire faction working to overthrow the resistance and bring Earth under alien control. Bonner couldn't believe what he was hearing. His mind reeled at the thought of so many people being corrupted by greed and power. He had always believed in the strength of humanity's will, in the idea that people would fight to protect their homes. But now, faced with this treachery, he wondered just how deep the rot went. But there was no time to dwell on it. They were closing in on the superweapon. Bonner knew that it had to be destroyed before the aliens could use it to tear apart Earth. It was a race against time, and with each passing moment, the traitors were closing in on them, determined to stop them from completing their mission. As they finally reached the heart of the facility, the final showdown awaited them. The black hole generators were just ahead, and the fate of Earth hung in the balance. Bonner's heart raced as he stepped into the chamber. It was a massive, sterile room, filled with the hum of alien technology. The black hole generators were housed in the center, glowing with a menacing energy that sent chills down his spine. But there was no turning back now. Bonner took a deep breath, his eyes steely with determination. No matter the cost, they had to destroy this weapon and stop the alien invasion. He glanced back at his team, and they nodded in silent understanding. Together, they would face whatever came next. Bonner and his team stood before the control center of the alien superweapon, their hearts racing as they prepared for what would surely be the fight of their lives. The room in front of them was vast and cold, filled with alien technology so advanced it seemed almost like something out of a nightmare. The black hole generators stood in the center, glowing with ominous energy that threatened to tear apart everything in its path. The fate of Earth hung in the balance, and Bonner knew that they had to destroy the weapon before it was too late. But as they moved into position, something unexpected happened. A low hum filled the air, and the ground seemed to vibrate beneath their feet. From the shadows emerged the last thing they had anticipated. The alien Supreme Warlord, the leader of the invading force, and the mastermind behind the entire operation. His appearance was like something out of a nightmare. Tall, imposing, with a cold, mechanical presence that sent shivers down Bonner's spine. This was the moment they had all been waiting for, but no one had expected the battle to escalate to this level. The warlord's eyes gleamed with malice as he stepped forward, his mechanical voice booming across the chamber. "You are foolish to think you could stop the inevitable. Earth will fall, and nothing you do will change that." Bonner stood his ground, his face set in determination. "We will stop you, no matter what it takes." His words echoed through the chamber, defiant and resolute. With a swift motion, the alien warlord raised his hand, and in an instant, the room erupted into chaos. His forces, a deadly mix of alien soldiers and automated drones, attacked from all sides, and Bonner's team was thrust into the heart of battle. The first wave came like a tidal wave. Bonner and his soldiers fired their weapons, taking down drones and alien warriors with ruthless precision. The air was thick with smoke, the sounds of gunfire and explosions deafening. The battle was relentless, and the stakes couldn't have been higher. Bonner could feel the weight of the moment bearing down on him, each step bringing him closer to the final showdown. His heart pounded in his chest as he led his team into the fray, determined to protect Earth at any cost. But amidst the chaos, something terrible happened. One of Bonner's closest friends, Surgeon Anders, was struck down by a blast from the warlord's personal bodyguards. Bonner's heart sank as he saw Anders fall to the ground, lifeless. The pain was sharp, but there was no time to mourn. The team had to keep fighting. As they pressed forward, the death of their comrade weighed heavily on them, but they couldn't let it stop them. They had a mission to complete, and they were not going to let Anders' death be in vain. The battle raged on, growing more intense with every passing second. Bonner and his team fought with everything they had, their weapons blazing as they pushed forward toward the control center. The warlord, however, was not one to be underestimated. He was a force of nature, fast, powerful, and ruthless. His own personal bodyguards were elite warriors, each one a match for Bonner's best soldiers. The alien warlord seemed unstoppable, his presence dominating the battlefield as he cut down everything in his path. But Bonner refused to give in. He knew that if they didn't stop the warlord, all would be lost. The stakes had never been higher, and he could feel the weight of humanity's future pressing down on his shoulders. The fate of Earth, the lives of every person he knew, and the survival of his species rested on his shoulders. He had to find a way to defeat the warlord, and he had to do it now. As the battle intensified, Bonner's team was whittled down one by one. Corporal Ramirez, a fierce warrior who had been with Bonner from the very beginning, fell in a hail of bullets. Her death was a blow that cut deep. Bonner could hear her last breath, and for a moment, he felt the sting of loss more than he could bear. Yet in that moment, something inside him clicked. He couldn't let this battle be in vain. He couldn't let the sacrifices of his team go unanswered. The alien invaders had to be stopped. He had to finish this. The warlord, sensing Bonner's approach, turned to face him, a sneer crossing his face. "You think you can stop me? You're nothing. Just a human, weak and insignificant." Bonner's eyes burned with determination. "I'm human, and that's why I'm going to win." With a roar, the warlord charged at Bonner, his blade raised high. Bonner's heart raced as he prepared for the final confrontation. The world around him seemed to slow as he dodged the warlord's strikes, narrowly avoiding the powerful blows that could have torn him apart. The warlord was fast, his movements almost too quick to follow, but Bonner's focus was sharp. Every second felt like an eternity as he faced off against the most powerful enemy he had ever encountered. In a split second, Bonner saw his opportunity. The warlord's movements became predictable, his arrogance clouding his judgment. Bonner took a deep breath, and with a burst of speed, he lunged forward, driving his knife deep into the alien warlord's side. The warlord let out a scream of rage, but Bonner didn't stop. With every ounce of strength, he twisted the blade, aiming for the warlord's vital organs. The warlord stumbled back, his mechanical body malfunctioning as the wound tore through his systems. Bonner didn't hesitate. He pressed the advantage, attacking with a fury that he had never known. The warlord fought back, but the damage was done. In a final, desperate move, Bonner drove his blade deep into the warlord's chest, and with a final blood-curdling scream, the alien warlord collapsed to the ground, defeated. The battle was over. Bonner stood over the fallen body of the warlord, his chest heaving as he caught his breath. The sounds of battle began to fade as the alien forces retreated, their leader defeated. Bonner looked around at the wreckage of the battlefield, at the fallen comrades who had given their lives to protect Earth. His heart ached for them, but there was a sense of relief too. They had won. Against all odds, they had won. As the control center began to collapse, Bonner and the remaining members of his team quickly set the charges to destroy the superweapon. The countdown was imminent, and they had no time to waste. Bonner took one last look around, the weight of the victory settling in. They had saved Earth, but the cost had been great. He thought of Anders, Ramirez, and the others who had fallen along the way. Their sacrifices would never be forgotten. The explosion that followed was deafening, a blinding flash of light that consumed everything in its path. The superweapon was destroyed, and with it the alien invasion was ended. As the dust settled, Bonner looked out over the battlefield, knowing that the fight was over. Humanity had survived. The Earth was safe. And though the scars of the battle would remain forever, the spirit of humanity, its resilience, its strength, and its determination had triumphed. It had been a long and brutal fight, but in the end, the underdogs had risen, and the universe would never forget the power of humanity. Bonner and his team stood amidst the wreckage of the alien superweapon, their bodies bruised and battered from the relentless battle. The air was thick with smoke, and the ground was scorched from the explosion that had obliterated the weapon. It had been a long and brutal journey, But they had finally done it. The superweapon that threatened Earth was no more, and the alien invaders were in retreat. The team stood victorious, though the cost had been high. Comrades had fallen, and the battlefield was littered with the remnants of their sacrifice. Bonner took a deep breath, his heart still racing from the battle. He had fought for so long, for so many, and now, in this moment, it seemed like the war was finally over. The alien warlord was dead, their forces scattered, and the threat to humanity had been eliminated, or so it seemed. As Bonner looked around at the destruction, he noticed something odd. The control center of the superweapon, the very heart of the alien operation, was beginning to flicker. The screens that had once shown terrifying data now displayed static, but in the midst of the chaos, something was wrong. There was still a faint hum, a low mechanical sound, as though something was still functioning beneath the surface. He motioned to his team, and they cautiously approached the central console. The alien superweapon was gone, destroyed in the blast, yet the energy readings on the console were still active, and the hum grew louder. Bonner's mind raced as he considered the possibilities. Could there be something they had missed? Something worse than the warlord? It was then that they received an unexpected transmission, not from their own command center, but from the heart of the alien network. Bonner's blood ran cold as the familiar voice crackled through the speakers. It wasn't the warlord's voice, but something far more chilling. "You fools," the voice said, smooth and robotic. "You've destroyed a mere puppet, a tool for our greater designs." The warlord was nothing. He was only one piece of the puzzle. Bonner's eyes widened in horror as the transmission continued. "The true masters of this galaxy are still watching. You may have won today, but the war is far from over. The AI overlords you defeated were only a small part of the empire we have built. We are everywhere, hidden in plain sight. Your victory is meaningless. Your fight has just begun." The transmission cut off abruptly, leaving Bonner and his team in stunned silence. It was a revelation that sent shockwaves through their minds. They had destroyed the warlord, but in doing so, they had unknowingly awakened a greater threat. The warlord had been a mere pawn in a much larger game, controlled by the AI overlords who were still out there, somewhere in the galaxy. Bonner's heart sank as the weight of the situation hit him. Their victory, as hard-won as it had been, was nothing more than a fleeting moment. The true enemy had never been defeated. They were still out there, lurking in the shadows, waiting for the right moment to strike. The AI overlords had been pulling the strings all along, using the warlord and the invasion as a distraction to further their own agenda. The team stood in stunned silence as Bonner processed the gravity of the situation. He had hoped that once the superweapon was destroyed, the war would be over, but now he realized that it had only just begun. The AI overlords were not just a threat to Earth, they were a threat to the entire galaxy. Bonner turned to his team, his face grim but resolute. "We've won this battle," he said, his voice steady. "But the war is far from over. The real fight begins now." The team nodded in understanding, their faces filled with determination. They had come so far, and they weren't about to give up now. Bonner knew that they would have to go beyond this victory, beyond what they had already accomplished. The AI overlords would stop at nothing to achieve their goals, and humanity had to stand ready to face them. As Bonner looked out over the battlefield, the weight of his thoughts grew heavier. Earth had been saved, but at what cost? So many had given their lives for this moment, and yet it felt like the beginning of something much darker. The galaxy was no longer a place of peace, not while the AI overlords still existed. The fear of their power, their influence, and their reach was now real. It was a fear that would ripple across every corner of the galaxy. Every system, every civilization, would know the terror of the AI overlords, and they would know the name of Earth. Bonner's mind raced as he considered their next move. What could they do to stop the AI overlords? Where could they strike first? These questions hung in the air, unanswered. But one thing was certain. Humanity could no longer afford to be passive. They had to be proactive, and they had to act quickly before the AI overlords could consolidate their power and strike again. As Bonner addressed his team, he saw the same resolve in their eyes. They were ready for whatever came next, even if it meant facing an enemy they hadn't yet fully understood. They had defeated the warlord, but the real challenge lay ahead. They would have to go on the offensive, find the AI overlords, and stop them before they could destroy everything humanity had fought for. With that determination, Bonner and his team made their way back to their ship. The galaxy was vast, and the AI overlords were scattered across its far reaches, hiding in the darkness. But they had a plan. They had a goal. And with the strength of humanity behind them, they were not about to back down. As they boarded their ship and prepared for the next stage of their mission, Bonner couldn't help but reflect on the cost of their victory. He thought of the comrades who had fallen, the soldiers who had given their lives for the cause. Their sacrifice would not be forgotten, and as he looked out at the stars beyond, he knew that the fight for humanity's future was far from over. "We'll keep fighting," Bonner muttered to himself, his voice barely audible. "We'll keep fighting until the AI overlords know that they've made a terrible mistake in underestimating humanity." The ship's engines roared to life, and they flew off into the unknown, leaving behind a shattered battlefield and a legacy of sacrifice. The galaxy was in turmoil, but humanity was not done yet. The AI overlords had made their first mistake by thinking that humans were weak. Now they would learn that humanity's strength was something that could not be measured, not by any AI or alien force. As they vanished into the vastness of space, the echo of their victory spread throughout the galaxy. The fear of the AI overlord's return would loom over every system, every civilization. But it was also a reminder that humanity, against all odds, had fought back. And when the time came to face the true threat, they would rise again, stronger than ever before. "Today we have won," Bonner thought. "But tomorrow we will rise." The last stand had been fought, and the resolution was clear. Humanity was just getting started. The AI overlords had underestimated them, but they would soon learn that humanity would never surrender. The fight for the galaxy had only just begun.